So here we are, a completed stock build of a 2009 PT Cruiser. You'll notice it is not Lips and L10 at the top, but rather Josh Fuco number 11. This is my cousin's husband, good guy, Josh Fuco. He is going to get into the pits for the first time. So he bought the car. I told him if he ever wanted to get in it, I said I'd be happy to use all my parts and what knowledge I have for stock builds to get him into the ring. So here she is. Again, the PT Cruisers, if you can keep those front wheels clean, I think they are a tough car, because these back ends, they don't look like much. There's not much there, but they just don't bend. I mean, you have to pound these things before you get in to any sort of, even the axle or any sort of critical anything in the back. You just got to keep those front wheels clean, which is pretty much all stock vehicles. So we're hopeful. We're pretty sure she's down a cylinder. Again, if you see my earlier videos, but again, got the idling up. I'll show under the hood here. We put a dummy sensor on it, and it actually brought the idling up from about maybe 700 to about $1,000 and then almost $1,500. So the nice idling, so it's not as almost stalling as it was. So good to go. So inside, just real quick, again, the simple stuff I do, again, unplug everything and pull it forward. Grounds, again, I like to reground even if they're really worthless. So that was a ground that was back there, and then same thing right here, showing the other side. It was a ground back here. Undid those, slid everything forward, kind of taped them together, and I had a little bit extra spray foam, so I zip tie them just so the wires are moved and stable. And you know, even if I get beat in, that shouldn't be an issue at all. I mean, I'd have to really be pounded in. And this, again, just a kind of rear seat crossbar for support. My welding's not great, but good enough. Battery box, shout out if he ever watches these to Mike DeJean. That is his kind of extra battery box. I just took a piece of metal. He didn't have anything for the top. And then again, that's just seat inside of seat foam that you just kind of secure it with. Doesn't seem to impact the battery at all, at least in all the derbies I've run. And got her mounted there, so shout out to him, really appreciate him. And then Hovis's, again, if you're local to Meadville, Hovis's Trucking Supply, I think is their full name, but in Meadville, Hovis's, they can custom make. That is a 2-gauge battery line. I was going to borrow Buddy's. Shout out to Lucas who let me borrow a bunch of stuff, but I ended up buying my own. Josh said he'd split it with me. I said, listen, you can go cheap with the wire, but they weren't a 2-gauge. They were like old, I think they were old, what do you call it? Old jumper cables. So ended up buying a good 2-gauge, 10-foot long, 2 of them with the terminal. And again, I'll show under the hood how I have that. Again, just a simple chain running from the top. You got to have something there. So that is it. So again, stock build, simple. But as I said, the tank, so here's your rear axle in essence. The tank is sitting all the way up there. So it's just really completely, with these PT Cruisers, out of harm's way. Again, carefully remove the steering wheel airbag, excuse me, as just unhooked the passenger when they're kind of picked the top of the dash up, unhooked it, and then put it back down. Don't need to remove it. So yeah, that is it. Again, you can see there is the ground that was back here. Again, just slid all forward, just undid that screw in the door and put that in. And again, my weld, good enough, you know, good enough in case you take that hard door shot, keeps your car stable and keeps that battery box clean. And again, keep your lines as far into the car as you can. I had one that I kind of had to run a little bit outside, and I got smashed on that passenger door and almost through the battery line, which not only is going to take you out, but also a fire hazard. So that's it outside. Again, up here, just unhooked everything. You see here, spray foam, the wiring. So again, stock derby car, that is the stock wiring. With this Cruiser, there's no way, at least with my basic knowledge, to just unplug it. Sometimes you can unhook the wire, like my Impala last year, the Chevy Impala, and inside the wheel well there was a ground, and there was an essence plug that I could unhook it, pulled it around through the headlights, and I had it running over top the inside of the motor, completely out of harm's way. Just plugged it back in, put the ground back in. Well, this one, at least with my basic knowledge, I have no idea how to do that. So I know obviously not a good thing to have wiring in front of your core support. The spray foam is not really going to super protect it or anything, but more so just keep it stable, whether you get a hit here. And that spray foam does provide a little bit of protection. Again, I like to spray it in the wheel wells as well as anywhere we have a little bit of wiring exposed. The bottom there, more so just to keep it. I had a little bit extra just to kind of keep that stable so it's not kind of dangling out here like it originally was. So not ideal, but again, hopefully good enough. And if they're smashing your front end that much, then you got to readjust your strategy. So let's look under the hood. And again, a simple setup under the hood, but again, it's a stock car. So the Cruisers, I mentioned on the build quick video I made, this right here is where the fan was. And in a stock derby car, it's really worthless. So if you can easily take it out, which all I did was take off the top of the core support, and then I didn't disengage this. I just unhooked the top of the radiator and kind of left it up. A little bit of fluid came out of the radiator as well as the top of that hose. It's kind of got like a pressure to it. So just kind of be careful as you do that. But I left that up and I just kind of slightly leaned it back, got to the bolts at the top and the side for the radiator fan, and then just unplugged it and took it out. The reason I think that is a absolute, not only smart thing to do, but that is spray foamed up now. That is the starter. And if you get punched here, the starter, again, the spray foam kind of helps, not really protect it a ton, but kind of keep it stable, especially the wiring on the other side. And if you have that fan there, it's smashing into it almost as soon as you get pressed back. So not necessary, not too hard to take off. And that's why I did that. Again, wiring, I just pull as much of it in as I can. Spray foam, here's the fuse box, a little bit around there. Spray foam here, the negative terminal, it's got a ground right here coming to it, and then the other kind of ground wires come there. I just use U-bolts, clamp them down real good with all the wires together, and then electrical tape it really good. The spray foam, again, is just meant to kind of keep it stable. I use zip ties as well underneath that, but just keep it stable, and again, a little bit of protection if you're getting hit on the side. And these are just, again, holding kind of those there. Almost got a little too close to the throttle there, but that's all right. And then the only other thing here is our dummy sensor. So again, this is just the sensor. That's what's telling your computer I'm too hot, shut it down. You don't want it doing that. So this motor will cook. It's a stock radiator, but if it gets punched up front, let her cook. That's it's a derby car, and we're not using it again after the derby. The only other thing I did, and again, just for that, here's the wiring. It kind of is tucked underneath the fill here, and it's hard to see, but right underneath that right there is where the thermostat is. And I didn't open it up because, again, it's a stock radiator, so that thing will get hot and open up on its own. The impact sensor is talking to the computer, and we don't want it to shut that down. That's why I did that. But that plugs in right underneath the thermostat there, and that's where it is. So just unplug it, leave it there so it doesn't pour out, run it back in and up there, and it's out of the way. So that's her. Again, not too complex, stock build, but we're excited, hoping she does a good job for Josh in the pit and he at least has a lot of fun. We'll see. So one other thing real quick I wanted to mention, if you're someone new with derby cars, but in particular cruisers, again, if you're running the stock tank like I am, and I mentioned, you have to get the sensors unplugged, and the cruisers hide them well. So there's two up front. They're actually inside. Right here is where they're bolting on the inside. Oh, get my camera focused. And again, I unplugged them, and then I actually took them out. But you have to, again, unplug the two there. And then the ones that are really hidden are actually under the seat belt. So right where the seatbelt is, I only have the driver one left. Inside there, I actually took that out with my T50 hex bolt. And underneath there is where the door impact sensors were. So again, kill the power of the battery, unplug them, and then you can take them out if you want. I just left those there. But again, if you're running a stock tank like I am, you have to get rid of those things. So didn't mention that, wanted to mention that before we load her up and hopefully have some fun.